This podcast is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or exhibition may result in civil liability, criminal prosecution, and the wrath of the tall man.
Boy!
Thanks for checking out 90for Chill, the podcast. And before I get the show going, I would like to offer a contextual grounding and trigger warning ahead of time. Now, I do talk with a friend who's about 5 years my junior, but we talk about how parenting seems to be a little too loose, and I make suggestions about, well, a little fear kind of kept me in line, I suppose, which, okay, fear is dark side stuff, so obviously I don't want to endorse that, more just observations. And this movie that we're going to discuss, House, is about a Vietnam veteran who's living in a haunted house and seems to have to confront all his PTSD while not really being overtly about PTSD. It just kind of left me thinking, and it's an apples and oranges situation, but how screwed up boomers must be since they didn't have the treatments that they have now for treating post-traumatic stress syndrome. On top of that, cinemas made Vietnam look like a far more intense situation, so it makes it seem like that Vietnam veterans definitely have more to deal with, and it's probably been unaddressed. But I don't want to say that I'm calling Afghan PTSD, Iraq War PTSD victims softer than them. It's totally different messed up situations. I'm not a soldier. I just don't want to offend anyone, of course. If you can point me in the right direction about stuff that'll educate me, greatly appreciated. My Twitter handle is @CatBusRus. That's what I prefer you to use to bitch about the show anyhow. Enlighten me, please. Before that, we'll talk about another movie. It'll be brief, and I hope you enjoy. 90 for Chill, the podcast, presents to you a reason to maintain a Netflix DVD subscription.
Your job here is simply to set claim to an archaeological discovery of alien origin. The find was discovered a few meters below the surface of Titan by a geological research team from NTI.
Why didn't the team claim it?
Because the only survivor crashed into the Concorde on his return, and we can only assume that the rest of the team is dead.
According to the first expedition, the stuff is over 200,000 years old.
It was alive. It was waiting for us. When we landed on this moon here, then there were 22 of us. One by one of my guys died, killed by something that had waited for them 2,000 centuries. Now it's waiting for us.
Good luck.
And I've concluded watching Creature from 1985, a Transworld Entertainment film, which means it's a B-movie, which is actually in the public domain, so I probably should have researched it a little further before I added it into my Netflix queue and then moved to the top, because I'm sure that there's probably a better transfer on Tubi right now, and I don't see that movie leaving Tubi anytime soon. But it is what culture horror says was a knockoff of Alien and some other features I can't really recall, but you get a mind control being, so I guess Invasion of the Body Snatchers could be said. So the two top things from the 1970s horror scene reimagined in 1985. So this is very cheap, and you can't really count on any movie to be good that obviously rips off Star Wars sound effects. In this case, you get laser blast every time the door opens, and when our ship crash lands on the alien planet where they're trying to investigate something, it sounds like they're going through the Battle of the Death Star from the original. So yes, pretty sloppy, and that's pretty much what dominates it, unfortunately. The narrative goes a little bit all over the place because they're trying to take from so much stuff, but when you get a crazy Klaus Kinski in it, that kind of makes it worthwhile or worth your time. Maybe there's a good reel on the YouTube where you can just get all the best bits of the film. And there are some fun gore effects. I'm not saying they're great, but, you know, you get some decapitated heads, you get heads exploding, and, you know, what were those other movies missing? Some nudity, so you get that, too. And honestly, with some of it, how it plays out, it really gives me some Event Horizon vibes. Like, I could see somebody like a Paul W.S. Anderson, or even Ridley Scott, because I could say, well, this doesn't make, at least, well, I should say, it kind of makes the same amount of sense as Prometheus. It's an interesting film, so if you're into horror and sci-fi, I mean, this isn't a great film. It's definitely not great in 4:3 ratio, and there's nothing clever about the direction. So it's very much shot in the shadows, so you don't really have to see how poor the alien knockoff monster is. So this isn't Galaxy of Terror or The Forbidden World, some classics from Roger Corman. This is just some fun ideas put on film, and I see it could inspire some people. Will I say it's a good movie? No. What I will say, though, is this should be featured in next year's B-Fest up at Northwestern in February. So it's got a lot of potential to entertain. Maybe not for the right reasons, but as I say, boobs, head busting, decapitations, that's kind of the schlock we look for.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
And thanks again for coming to 90ForChill, the podcast. This is your host, Cool Movies Darth. You can follow what I'm watching on Letterboxd. The username is all one word, CM Darth. And if you need to or feel more comfortable listening to this at home, say on an Amazon Echo or a Google Nest, just ask for the most recent podcast by, or I should say, play the most recent podcast by Russ Stevens. It's cool to be firsties on something. With all that said, Gregory Carl is back on the show to save my butt. I'd like to have a guest for every episode of Spooky Month, like I did last year, so thanks again for his suggestion of House on a previous podcast. He also mentioned the McPherson tape, and we do just talk about, and yeah, we just went with what I knew he liked. So, with all that said, House is a movie from 1985 about, as I said in the context warning, a Vietnam veteran who lives in a haunted house to get inspiration for his Vietnam memoirs and possibly find his son that may have been taken by the house. So that's what we're up with this week. I mean, if you want to be on the show, just offer me a horror movie or something spooky. rustthebus07@gmail.com is the email address. Love to hear from you. With all that said, not much new in my life. Just joined a trivia team that was formed on Bumble, so if you're at Poor Bros in Champaign, look out for the Bumblebees. And yeah, I guess I'm just feeling a little stagnant. When you don't have people jumping up to be on the show that can do that as well. So, but that's where my head's at. I'm doing all right otherwise. Really exhausted. Like, I'm just trying to get this done by 7 o'clock so I can do my typical Tuesday tweet storm. But yeah, I guess that pretty much sums everything up. Again, I'd love to hear from you and love to host you on the podcast. Just offer me a movie, a theme, a director, an actor. Just keep it focused as 100-minute material. And I think we'll have some fried podcast gold. Otherwise, just, if that's too tricky, throw a movie my way and I'll make it work. So thanks again for coming to 90ForChill, the podcast, and enjoy the show.
This is a house where no one should live. Roger Cobb has come here alone. But no one is ever alone in the house.
Leave while you can. No!
Sandy.
Horror has found a new home. House. Enter at your own risk.
Pardon the interruption, but before we get into the show, just one more thing. So my conversation with Gregory started about his debut at Pinfall Wrestling in Springfield. So we go and talk about that for about 10 minutes. But since it's not really the movie, I decided to just tack that at the end of the recording. So after David Tennant requests a Wahoo, if you're not a wrestling fan or you don't want to hear Springfield wrestling trashed, go and stop the pod.
Superman!
It was fun talking about wrestling. I don't know if I'm going to keep that all on there, but this is
talk about this movie.
Oh yes, exactly. So more or less just the language. I think we can go and contain things. This was an R-rated movie, which I think should have probably been PG-13 if they would have gotten rid of Richard Mall dropping some F-bombs in the Vietnam flashbacks. But yes, so this is 90 for Chill, the podcast. My guest this weekend doing me quite a favor, coming on last moment. And I kind of owe him an appearance after the Kevin Smith podcast just didn't go through. I thought I had a good panel set up, and it just wasn't going to work out. So it is once again Gregory Carl, and I believe he recommended this feature a while ago. So we are talking about the movie House from 1986. So,
have you ever seen this movie before now?
No, this was the first time. I knew a lot of people talked well of it. I've got a coworker who I'm trying to get on the show to talk about Night of the Demons. A coworker who's got a reputation from other guests, like, oh yeah, he helped me get here. I knew this because of him. All right, so I want to get to that the horse's mouth there at some point. Yes.
Buddy Eric Kisner used to rent this movie at City Video way back in the day on
yeah, and as I say, this
was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Back when box art mattered.
Oh yeah. And I wouldn't say misleading. It's just it's not like this is kind of Evil Dead light in a sense. Like, the house is gonna start, like the Marlin is gonna start that's on the wall, mounted on the wall, is going to start doing some stuff. That's the extent, I guess, of the stuff I would say, like, oh yeah, you'd see that in Evil Dead, but
that is a deep ass V on his sweater.
I'm sorry?
I've had it on in the background for
okay.
I hadn't noticed the sweater he was wearing.
Yeah, no, still very 80s, maybe a little 70s hangover, in all honesty.
Wow.
Like that. So this movie is about a art author, I think it's Roger Cobb, who aunt who raised him committed suicide right at the beginning in this old house that she always said was haunted, and is also the place where his son seemingly disappeared, which led to his divorce. Kind of like a Minority Effect bit when you think about that, like the wife saying, oh, the reason I got rid of Tom Cruise was because when I looked at him I saw my son. So yeah, Mrs. Hooper was her name. So the movie starts, I think, with it, like, kind of gives you some Phantasm vibes, in all honesty. Like, you got a great score, and it's kind of selling you like this is going to be like a dreamy movie, like very much dependent on a, like, this isn't reality. What is reality, I guess? And So Mrs. Hooper commits suicide, found by the essentially the Instacart guy. And in the meantime, Roger Cobb is being pressured to find his to write a new novel. He's eventually this essentially Stephen King. And I would imagine Stephen King's had those weird ass book signings. Not to say that most signings aren't like that, in all honesty, regardless if you're a famous horror author.
Yeah, I could never make myself go to one of those things. As much as I like certain people and whatnot, like I could never make myself do a thing like that.
Yeah, I mean it's those are awkward. I mean I talked a lot this summer about Kevin Smith autograph signing. But hey, to my credit, Kevin Smith did like one of the tweets to promote my Clerks 3 episode of 90 for Chill the podcast. So I'm getting there.
An article about a Tuska sequel.
Yeah, they are going to do one. I should have just actually thrown that your way, but I didn't check the runtime on Tusk. I don't know if they heard your idea.
Maybe me and Kevin Smith got high at the same time and we telepathically linked up.
I have not shopped around enough, I guess, in when it comes to dispensaries to see if they got a Kevin Smith, any of Kevin Smith's kind of veins.
I'll bet he's got a strain.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has a weed strain these days.
Oh no, I'm certain he does, which is fun again in Clerks 3. Like Jay and by it. So you got the quick stop. Well, of course, the video store isn't operating anymore. And if you see Jay and Silent Bob reboot, they first used it as I think it was a roasted chicken front for all their weed. In this movie, though, it's legal in New Jersey now. So there's a scene where somebody wants to buy some stuff from them. And like, hey, is anybody working in there? And they're like, what do you mean working? Well, I'd like to get 3 pre-rolls. Okay, and then Jay and Silent Bob basically as they're standing outside their own store dispensary, coughing, trying to make it like, no, we're not selling a guy weed. And the kid at the end, what the hell is that, Bad? That's how we did it in the 90s, son. So, Clerks 3 definitely it's close to the top 5 in his filmography. I would say Chasing Amy is always going to be my top. Clerks, Dogma, I'd probably say Zack and Miri. And yeah, one of his horror movies, either Tusk or Red State, could probably fill the 5th spot. So, but for somebody who's worked in customer services for the last 23 years, it really hit close to home. So it's going to hold a special spot in my life. So I got to see it for its national debut. So feel pretty cool about that. And I was told a lot of people were talking about it from Mike Hairdresser, and I was like, I don't know. I think there were more people for the Riff Tracks Swamp Thing Returns movie. So Fathom event, I should say. But no, it's definitely going to be worthwhile. I still got to keep track to see when it was going to play in Chicago. But KMFDM is first when it comes to my next Chicago trip. So yeah. So this movie House always is quick to have questions, I guess. Like how did Mrs. Hooper end up getting a Catholic funeral? It seemed like. Because
it's just how they did things back then.
Well, no, suicide's always been one of those big things where you can't get buried on sacred ground. I don't know. It could have been Episcopal or Anglican. But when I see that little white thing, under, on the collar, it's kind of like, I always assume Catholics, but I don't know. I shouldn't be assuming anything. I am officially an ordained minister of the Universal Life Church. So,
Oh yeah, you're an authority on this shit now.
well, I haven't ordered my paperwork yet, so don't expect me to marry anybody yet.
That was exorcisms through there.
I don't know, because again, Universal Life Church, like I got inspired by it and did it drunkenly, but it was again thanks to Kevin Smith, because when I was at his recording of Jay and Silent Bob Get Old at the Fan Expo in Chicago, they hosted they married a couple. Kevin Smith's ordained through the same church. Stephen Colbert as well, basically any celebrity, and their vows were basically centered around the vows of the Green Lantern Corps. So, yeah, it's more than Judeo-Christian stuff. That's all I can say. So, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, when somebody commits suicide, and that could have been a there's so much that goes on in the movie. I shouldn't actually even complain about that, honestly. Like,
I mean, she probably had some special pull. I mean, she had a house with like demons and stuff in her closet.
Yeah, so Roger goes to the funeral, then does a book signing, and he's got. So Roger's story though is that his son just suddenly vanished, and he's obsessed with it. He keeps calling the FBI about it, and Mrs. Hooper, his aunt, says, well, the house took him. That's why there's no trace of him. And eventually, so Roger has a nightmare of a demon grabbing his son in Vietnam, of all places, which comes into play, especially since Roger thinks the next book's got to be about his experiences in Nam. And it's the mid 80s. Everybody's writing about that. Anyhow, which made me make an observation. How messed up are baby boomers with their PTSD? Like millennials, Gen X, yeah, we dealt with the deserts and, don't trust anybody who's speaking Arabic over, when you're abroad. But, we didn't have to, our soldiers who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, they didn't really have to deal with jungles and such. Like, Vietnam still seems more intense. I'm not trying to downplay the experiences, but Vietnam seems far more intense. And then on top of that, the therapy options and everything for veterans back then compared to what we have now, it's like, I mean, geesh, maybe that I don't know. It's like, is that why they still, they stick to conservative values? They just wanted to be like home before they were deployed. I don't know. Vietnam gave us Trump, in other words. That's what I'm saying. Because I think you got to be pretty screwed up somehow to vote for that guy.
But, come on, man! Don't put all that pressure on this beautiful movie.
Well, this movie does a lot of stuff that makes you think. Like Roger, like upon getting talked down to by his agent about, come on, just write another horror movie. You got to get me something, or you're gonna have to pay back your advance. And then he goes to his apartment and throws a banquet dinner into the microwave. And like when he opens his freezer and he's got like 3 or 4 banquet, microwave meals there, he's like, oh gosh, this is my life. I mean, I don't know why you're trashing a product in this movie as well. I think banquet meals are all right. They get the job done. And
Yeah,
you
worst
can't
thing.
you can't beat the price. I mean, so and this movie kind of made me think, was this a rush? It couldn't have been, because Evil Dead 2, I think, was another 2-3 years away. But it kind of makes me feel like they were trying to rush, it's just a weird time, because they had a lot of Vietnam movies being rushed out. Rambo 2, First Blood Part 2, Rambo First Blood Part 2 was coming out in 1985, and Canon Film Group answered that by releasing both Missing in Action and Missing in Action 2 in the same year to capitalize on the Vietnam craze. And but like, or I guess you could definitely say you could see the influence of, say, Evil Dead on this, because there's a lot of and that's I guess I'd say there's a lot of comedy, but there's not really a lot of comedy in the original Evil Dead. That was all more or less in the second one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
well, House 2 really leans into the comedy.
That's what I've heard. I think they've said, like, at least watching What Culture videos out of my the town of my favorite football club, Newcastle upon Tyne. I do watch a lot of What Culture videos, and yeah, they bring up, like, yeah, House 3 was a return to House 1, and no, we were kind of comfortable with House 2. So
well, there's a third house?
I think there's 4 houses.
Damn, I stopped it too.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's
You know what's wild about this movie? How his neighbor just freely walks into his house. That's crazy these days.
Oh, well, I mean, growing up in the 80s, that was a time, it was a weird time, because I'd say through the mid 80s, we had helping hand decals on windows. Like, oh, these are people you can trust. And I think there was probably a lot of underground buggering going on with that. So those disappeared by the 90s. I don't know. I think it's in the 80s, you'd like to think of it as safer times. And no, I think we were just wanting to be naive, and a bunch of Reagan bullshit and honesty, like, oh, everything has to be, well, we have this going on.
Doesn't basically just like come in at one point, like when he first meets him. Walks and
so yeah,
he's like, hey, I got some people know you're famous.
So yeah, I could bring that up. So George Wendt is in a lot of horror movies if you stop and think about it, and maybe a lot is an over exaggeration, but he's in House. And then this the people who are distributing it now on Shudder are the same people who distributed VFW, if you've seen that one.
I've been meaning to watch that. Actually.
Oh gosh, that is a good one. It's basically what you really want the Expendables to be like. I mean, the action's obviously not up on that level, but it's Grindhouse. You got, I mean, the Stephen Lang, Fred Williamson, Bill Sadler, Martin Cove, David Patrick Kelly from Commando, and The Crow, if you know that, if that's enough description of him. You know, he was gosh, I forgot his name in he was Sully in Commando. You know. Okay. I like you're funny, Sully. I like you. That's why I'll kill you last. Was Schwarzenegger's interaction with him. And then when he finally catches Sully and holding him over the cliff by his foot. Remember, Sully, when I told you I'd kill you last? Yeah, man, you did. I lied. He's also the guy who does the Warriors Come Out and Play bit. So, the bad guy from the Warriors. So, but
okay, that guy.
yeah. So yeah, they're all in it, and some guys I know from podcasts are in it, and George Wentz in it. And then George Wendt I know was in Stuart Gordon's. Well, he was in the movie Space Truckers, directed by Stuart Gordon. Stuart Gordon's going to be best remembered for Reanimator.
Yeah.
And he gets so he's in that movie. He gets probably the most gruesome death in that movie. It's a PG-13 rated movie, so I can't be that bad.
I vaguely remember that movie. I think it used to be on TNT back in the day.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like a Monster Vision. Dennis Hopper is your lead. And then there's and I was like, remember watching this really screwy movie, I think on Sci-Fi Channel called Alien Avengers. I was looking it up today, and it's like, so that movie is like George Wendt moves his family from space into the inner city because they like to just kill lowlifes. It's a comedy. And I'm really disappointed in VFW because it starts at a VFW, so it's a bunch of guys sitting around a bar drinking. And it's like, you couldn't get George Rathesberger for this and make it make it both Cliff and Norm.
I have to watch that, man.
Yeah.
I haven't made it for a while.
I think it's on Shudder, as I say. RJL Entertainment is the group that now distributes House, and they distributed VFW. I found it at I rented it first, obviously, but I found it at Best Buy for only like $6 on 4K, $7 for 4K. So definitely something, if you can get your hands on it. As they say, it's on Shudder, so you shouldn't really have to do any work. But we get back to Roger. He moves into his inspired by his nightmare of his son being kidnapped by a demon in Vietnam. He moves back into his aunt's house despite his aunt saying it was haunted, and that's what took his son and ruined his life. He's got a hot wife who divorced him, sadly, because of all that trauma. And about a night into it, he finds a demon in a closet, and it looks like he's going into full Vietnam flashback. And it's really spooking the hell out of his neighbor, played by George Wendt, better known as Norm from Cheers. So, another thing with George Wendt. I know he was in the LA's adaptation of Reanimator into a musical. And I can't recall what movie that George Wendt was in, that another horror movie under Stuart Gordon where they had to have his head severed. But I guess they used the prop of his severed head in the Reanimator musical. So, but yeah, as you said, it's very weird that at least today that George Wendt just pretty much walks into the house whenever he wants. So with Roger dealing with a demon in the closet and starting to seemingly go into Vietnam flashback mode, George Wendt's concern calls his ex-wife, which is another weird thing I caught. The ex-wife didn't give a 555 number as their daytime number. So if you want to go and prank somebody, call the number they give in this movie. It's like 8675309, I suppose. Which is another movie I don't know, I got to check the runtime on, but definitely getting a lot of support nowadays. Jennifer's Body.
Oh yeah, I always kind of like that movie. It's not a bad flick.
No, it just I think it was just anti Megan Fox moment at the time. Like,
didn't get a lot of hate. I don't remember that movie getting any hate.
Nobody saw it. That's why it didn't really get any hate. I think everybody was like, "Oh, Megan Fox leading as your advertised lead." I mean, it's I don't know. I'm almost to the point where I say any movie with Lance Henriksen is worth a watch. I don't know, but then I've watched the cinema snob do a video about the Hellraiser made for video that he Lance Henriksen was in. So, so that's George went in horror. So
talk about all the cameras he set up yet?
Yeah, we're at that scene right now. In my peripheral. So yeah, he's gonna try busting Ghost. Essentially. So there you go. I guess this is why this movie happened. It was because of Ghostbusters. And again, the comedy almost just takes you away from the movie. Like George Wendt just popping up and like, hey, I got solitude is better when you're with friends, man. So yeah, so basically George Wendt is the only person who's really down on trying to I think my neighbor's going nuts. And does his best to try selling that. But I guess that comes back around to me talking about George Wendt in horror movies. Like, we all want to kill Norm from Cheers.
Do we? Norm's lovable, dude. No one wants to kill Norm.
I don't know. It goes back to a song by Nerf Herder, "Welcome to My Life," and it's like after the first two verses, you have this verse. Don't want to be here. Don't want to be here tonight. Don't want to watch another Cheers rerun tonight. I hate that Woody. I hate Diane.
Well, I mean, that dude's just a fucking prick anyway. You just leave the channel.
Yeah, but
busted ass TV he watching. Maybe he should just stop being poor. Just go to the movies so he doesn't have to just watch Cheers.
Oh, it's a brilliant song though. It's like I hate that Woody. I hate Diane. Norman and Frasier, that dumbass mailman. But no, it's a great song. Like, I mean, lyrics about don't you ever fear, because I've got TV and I've got beer and I've got Mr. Belvedere, and there's even a line about pissing in, and I can piss in the kitchen sink. Like, it's definitely a song worth looking for. Again, Nerf Herder, "Welcome to My Life." It's yeah. So let's see, but I mean, I don't know. Back in Space Truckers, when he gets sucked into the vacuum of space, ass first, it's kind of like, yeah, I can dig that. It's a Barbara Crampton movie, so that tells you should rewatch Space Truckers.
This dude's gotta have some money, man. Like, I can't even imagine how much all those cameras he bought must have cost him.
Well, I mean, Roger character he hasn't written anything except for, I mean, he starts writing his memoir about Vietnam, which is like his actual motive for moving to the house. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice house. I mean, the fact it's damn near Victorian and has a pool, which that gets weird once you bring the Tanya character into it.
It's pretty enough. I might be able to get past the possession thing.
Yeah. But and then the possession thing turns out to just be a revenge from beyond the grave story from, what was his name? Bull from Night Court.
Yeah.
You might be a little too young for Night Court.
Yeah.
That was a show in the late 80s.
I know what Night Court is.
Okay. So he was the bald bailiff.
Yeah, the judge was a magician.
I mean, I know the judge was the guy who ended up being Dave on Dave's World, the series based around Dave Barry's works, which is another movie I gotta take the time to rewatch. He had his novel Big Trouble adapted into a movie right after 9/11. So, I mean, it was adapted before 9/11, then 9/11 happened. It's like, oh, we can't make airport security jokes anymore. But that movie's got Jason Lee, Tim Allen's your lead, Stanley Tucci. You can't go wrong with a movie with him. I mean, a huge cast. Dennis Farina. I mean, actually, I think a young, was it Ben Foster or Aaron Paul? I can get those two mixed up. So, but I do love the fact this movie has the Vietnam subtext. This is a little easier to get into than, say, Platoon or Full Metal Jacket, obviously. I mean, maybe too easy because it kind of, you kind of start feeling like it makes light. And this is another Vietnam movie we're talking about after Blind Fury. So,
you think this movie might be like a weird metaphor for PTSD?
Oh, it's an obvious metaphor for PTSD, I think. That's why I was bringing it up. Like, maybe I need to watch more movies about the Afghanistan conflict and such. But it's like, again, this is a layman person, but you don't hear too many stories about soldiers going in the caves to find Bin Laden. Vietnam, like, oh yeah, everybody's got to go into the jungle. Essentially with so yeah, it's just like I was trying to actually, because I haven't watched the movie Jacob's Ladder with Tim Robbins. I know they recently did a remake with I think Michael Easley, or I think his name is, black actor. This is in a lot of movies. The face. Have you ever seen Jacob's Ladder?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, yeah, it sounded very Stephen King, and then I read up on it. It's like, it wasn't Stephen King. Damn. And it was made just for the movies. Oh, sheesh. This isn't a attempt to popularize Dean Koontz. Like, the only Dean Koontz adaptation I know that's worth watching is Phantoms with and I don't know, maybe Kevin Smith gave me some rose-covered lenses for that. Have you seen Phantoms?
Phantoms.
Ben Affleck.
Ben
Affleck. Rose McGowan.
I had to have seen it.
Liev Schreiber. Peter O'Toole. Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah, so. I had to have seen it, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. So that's the thing, growing up in a family that followed the MPAA's rating recommendations. I didn't really get to discover anything until I was out of my house. Like, I saw Trainspotting and said, oh, this is an awesome movie. I think everybody should see. My mom sees Trainspotting, and it's like, don't ever bring up that movie again. So, I don't know if she's ever noticed I got quotes from Trainspotting tattooed on me. So it's only a quote from Trainspotting. It's and the reasons, there are no reasons, and I leave it at that. Instead of who needs reasons when you have heroin. We're just now getting into the bit where he brings the shotgun out to shoot the marlin.
I really don't hate these monster effects.
No, they're like,
I don't hate them.
I mean, I'm kind of like, I went to Letterboxd. I gave it a 3 stars and a heart, saying I liked it. Maybe it is 3.5. It's at least. I'm not going to say it's 4, better than 4, but no, the monster effects. I think the problem with this is that Evil Dead 2 was just around the corner, and then it just blows everything away. But no, it's like I think I've made the I definitely tweeted on Twitter. It's like, oh gosh, like, have visual effects in horror movies ever really been better than Ghostbusters, because I mean I can't think of any good CG horror.
Nah, when I know it's a computer, it always kind of takes me out of it. It always
Well,
has that look. I don't like it.
well, I mean, it just doesn't work for horror necessarily. I think it's just because horror is generally low budget. Like, I don't complain about the effects in Jurassic Park at all. So I mean, CG can be done great, but
How about the new Jurassic Park?
I haven't seen Dominion. I don't know.
Like most recent.
Yeah, that would be Dominion. Like I did not like Jurassic World. It was just way too derivative of like everything I love. Because never mind, Jurassic Park's a knockoff of Westworld, the 1973 movie, which Michael Crichton wrote and directed. So he was already retreading stuff when he wrote Jurassic Park. But then like, oh, the Dominus Rex can go in camouflage because it's part cuttlefish. So you're telling me it's the Predator. And then you have the scene where the armed unit attempts to take it, and then it's like, oh, that's all ripped off from Aliens, when Gorman and Ripley are watching the people flatline after they find the nest.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know, dude. I never got into the whole Jurassic Park thing.
Oh, well, as I say, the second Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, that is so goofy, it's fun. And I can really say from the original trilogy, I've not watched 3 from beginning to end. I saw the first 2 in theaters. Jurassic Park, excellent. I really can't. I mean, as I say, it's Westworld, but without the subtlety.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that in the movie theater, and like, oh, that's a cool movie. And like, by the time the second one came out, like, I could not give a shit.
The second one is it doesn't have the fun of the first one, and I think maybe that's because we were just discovering this, the brilliance of computer generated effects. So, in my peripheral, George Wendt is just about to call for a suicide attempt on our main character, Roger, as Roger believes he killed his ex-wife. And that's like the demon effects are fun in this movie when I bring that up. Like, it's almost weird that you have this ending, which is basically, a person he didn't kill in Vietnam out to get him. But you got these like bloated demons that are taunting him. And it especially gets fun where he tries dismembering the demon, which again, as I say, this movie is just 2 F words away from being PG-13, I think. I mean, yeah, seeing the
fact that it's demons or something might keep it R back then.
I don't know, because this is definitely less intense than Gremlins, I'd say, which set the PG-13 standard a year prior. So it's like,
that's something else I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I gotta
pick up Critters, actually, the other
day. I don't know. It took me, truth be told, it took me a good, probably 35 years. That's an overestimate, but for me to finally deal with Gremlins, like, being a kid, I was 4 years old when Gremlins came out, and it was, marketed it completely wrong. Like, you could go to Hardee's and buy little vinyl records that tell the story of Gremlins. And I'm listening to that. Ooh. And then I see a gremlin. Oh, shit. No. Not for me. And my mom saw it and she said it was a good movie, but it's like, I was scared of the dark before Gremlins. And you're giving me creatures that you need light to kill? Like, no, it took me a long time to get past Gremlins.
That's a hilarious thing to be afraid of.
Well, I mean, like, even at the end,
all he had to do is not get him wet, dude. Don't feed him after midnight.
Right, but
fine.
If Corey
follow the rules.
Well, I mean, Corey Feldman didn't follow the rules, but again, he wasn't really aware of it, so.
He's doing a show in Bloomington pretty soon.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm curious. Definitely curious. I saw him at Fan Expo. He did it wasn't a full-blown Goonies reunion, especially since by the end of that night, Sean Astin tested positive COVID. Like at Fan Expo, they had the Four Hobbits.
What the? This bitch is really just gonna dump this kid off.
Yeah, you're a little further ahead than I am. Yeah, it's this hot Swedish chick, Tanya. The only other thing I could say I've seen her in is she's in A View to a Kill as the liaison for James Bond in the pre-credit sequence, where she's operating a submarine disguised as an iceberg.
I need to get back into watching movies like that. I'm trying to get back into watching like the straight to video weird action movies from my youth.
Yeah, you see, that's again a generational thing, because like I can't really say in my youth that we had like direct to video was anything but horror.
Yeah, like, that was a good bulk of it.
Yeah,
a chunk of it from the local video store. They had a huge horde selection.
Yeah, well, I mean, horror is generally considered cheaper to make, and action movies in the 80s, like those are explosions everywhere, so that definitely wasn't going to be made for DVD stuff. I think after the lack of success for Showdown in Little Tokyo, I think that's when they and Chuck Norris, Cannon, once the Cannon group went under, I think that's when action movies oh, we don't have to do ridiculous effects anymore. Let Mark Dacascos just kick some people for 90 minutes. I think we got something. I think that's when action movies became made for video stuff. I mean, if I wanted a movie, I'd say even for me in the 80s, if it looked like it was made for video, it was probably made in Hong Kong. I have a video I bought from Second City Video before it went out. It wasn't long before they went out of business. I'll buy these VHS tapes for $2 a piece. It's called Blood Fight, and it was released a year after Bloodsport, and it's basically the same story. Bolo Young is in the movie as the bad guy.
Hell yeah.
It's boring as all hell because it's again Bloodsport. But yeah, I don't think we had to make a lot of action movies in the 80s to put to the VHS market, because we had Jackie Chan falling off of stuff in China, and they're just desperate for distribution. So that's so I'd say once you started seeing action movie sequels, that's when you knew it was made for video stuff. I think there's a lot of this movie House reminds me of this movie I saw I can't remember the name of the director, but it's a Spanish movie called The Orphanage from say about 2006.
Oh yeah. I know the movie. It's that dude that did Pan's Labyrinth, I think.
No, that's Guillermo del Toro. No, it was produced by Guillermo. I shouldn't knock you there. No, actually the director went on to direct that Jurassic World movie that I did like. But I say that as the cops have just left and he's trying to find where his gun went, and he's got the poker, the fireplace poker, and he's got the fat demon about to beat him around with the shotgun. That's something about 80s demons though. It's kind of like
something else too, man. I would not give a stranger's kid a bath. Not in a million years would you catch me with that child naked under anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're about
that kid away.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was stranger danger when he was chasing the kid down. They end up in the bathroom when he's trying to get the hand off the demon that in the where I'm at in the movie is about to get skewered by all those hardware devices, the trimmers, the shovel, just decapitated.
He's been in Vietnam. He's supposed to be tough. He's smacking, cucking out for this Swedish lady.
It's a different time, man. Like, I don't know if I mean, I've done some stupid thing for some big tittied blondes before. So, I mean, I got more than Roger did, but I don't know. Well, Roger gets back with his wife, you'd presume, at the end of this movie. So yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Everybody is just, it's weird. I guess the supporting characters are not written exceptionally well, because I got Roger dragging out he just buried the head of the demon. Now he's going to bury the body. And that's where he finds Tanya in his pool. Yeah, I think you got to kind of develop a theme with the neighbors. You know, you can't have, oh, geez, that is a nice rump. In the swimsuit. Yeah. Brings back
enough to bathe her child.
I mean, the entire the bathing stuff might be a little awkward, but you did just have to take the kid you don't want the kid talking about demons dragging him up a chimney. So, I mean, I don't know. How would you tell an 80s playmate that, no, I'm not going to take care of your kid for a few hours?
Well, I mean, I would try to negotiate price or something first.
Well, but I'm just saying, you're
kid and pile a bunch of toys in my house, like, bitch.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think you're even. Yeah, again, that I've never perved out on this podcast, but that bum, damn. Or it might be the swimsuit. So, I don't know. I've probably, like, she could have I don't know. I mean, she could have probably got George Wendt to take care of the kid. No objections. Because he's pretty much a pushover, especially when he's eventually dragged into the demon fighting. The entire story about the Cujo raccoon, which, if that tells you there's not a lot of, this is kind of knockoff Stephen King, that joke kind of does it for you. But I mean, this movie's only 92 minutes long, a few seconds over 92, so it's kind of ends up being nuts how much stuff they actually get into this feature. You get the entire Vietnam flashbacks. You get these separate, like, subplots of the babysitting the kid, of trying to shoot the ghost, trying to, catch the ghost on camera, his entire Evil Dead moment where he's dealing with the gardening equipment and the demons. It's just, and then you get little sidetracks with the dog digging up the hand of the demon. It's like, I guess that what that says is this movie has zero depth, aside from this is probably the screwed up life of a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, no people actually die, do they?
Just Mrs. Hooper.
Oh yeah.
To trigger the entire story.
We don't see it.
Nah, you see her waving around and then you see in the flash, in the vision that Roger has, that I thought I was smarter than the house. It was never gonna trick. There's some ridiculous stuff, like before the Tanya shows up with her kid and the dog's running off with the hand, and then he's looking for his car keys in drawers and such, and it's like, Gosh, that is the worst. How did we let? I mean, again, you weren't around for it, but damn, how did we let people get away with those haircuts on kids?
Or how about when he first puts his army fatigues back on and buys all those cameras, and he like does that dive out of the house?
Oh yeah, celebrating that. Oh, I'm gonna, I'm ready for combat. I mean, yeah, I mean the entire flashback element. I mean, and for me, it's kind of nuts, being a guy who's 42 now, and sitting back and realizing that okay, these characters are all in their early to mid 30s, and of course they had to deal with freaking Vietnam. It's like, quite a trip for me to just sit back and realize like, oh geez, yeah. I mean, it's almost like, oh, good thing I didn't end up being patriotic, or excessively patriotic, I should say, because when 9/11 happened, I was 21, and it's like, and I was basically saying to everybody, like, if we declare war in 2 days like we did after Pearl Harbor, I'm enlisting. And we didn't, and it's like, all right, things are screwed up, so I'll sit this one out. And then, I mean, we get into the politics of the wars to begin, all day, which is another mess in itself. I mean, I don't know. I'm basically the type who, like, we haven't had a real enemy since, I mean, Vietnam at least made some sense. We kind of got ourselves stuck in that position because of the Marshall Plan.
Oh yeah, we're Superman, baby. USA.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying Afghanistan and Iraq, it's kind of like, really? Is this about, like, well, that's when we got into regime changing, I guess. That's the CIA's job. It's not us. If they can't do it, we should stay the heck out of it. Yeah, so we're dealing with the kid, just being cranky. I can't really. I've been lucky. Like I've taken care of some kids before, but yeah, usually they're pretty. I mean, I've dealt with the easy ones. What can I say?
Oh no, man! You sure that Universal Life Church doesn't offer exorcisms? Because I got a 9-year-old that I'm pretty sure might be possessed.
Well, it doesn't do you any good. Like, I might be an ordained minister, but I'm an atheist, so it's kind of. I don't know if I could do anything about it. Like, I like the joke that, in the sense that, like whenever I sell a product and I have somebody say, "Well, I hope this works," I want to go and bless it. Like, I can do that. I'm ordained.
Instead of squirt him in the face with a super soaker and just be all the power of something compels you. The power of something maybe compels you. Like,
hey. Let's just say, hey, now you just made me think though. At least I'm ready for. Might not be ready for a zombie apocalypse, but if we got a Daybreaker situation with vampires, I can go and get some holy water like that. So. I mean, the entire point of religion, at least the acts, I would say, is basically like, it might not mean anything to me, but it might mean everything to something else. So never hurts to go and give a laptop a blessing. That's all I'm gonna say.
No.
So I'm at the point in the movie where we see the main trauma of Roger, where he sees Richard Mole. Him and Richard Mole are on point.
Movie that sucked.
I'm sorry?
It was some vampire movie that sucked, but I don't think it was called Daybreakers.
About
it.
Daybreakers was Willem Dafoe, Sam Neill, Ethan Hawke. I thought it was a bunch of fun. I thought it was a lot of fun, but if you want a vampire movie that sucks, I'd say Lost Boys: The Tribe. But I loved Lost Boys: The Thirst, the third movie, because that basically is Edgar Frog the movie. So
I don't think I actually watched that one. I vaguely remember The Tribe.
yeah, The Tribe wasn't that great. I mean, it was a complete retread of the Lost Boys, and then it was like trying to make fun of it, all the most dorky stuff about the Lost Boys, like the guy with the saxophone, and which I actually watched. What there was a show on Netflix hosted by Michelle Wolf, and she only got one season. But it was like reviewing stuff and like, and here's an easier way to tell the news with the guy with the saxophone from the Lost Boys, and that guy's still shredded. So I guess if there's a complaint about this movie, is just everything ends up being put in a nice little bow, I suppose. Like, I mean, it's kind of like there's a bit in the TV show True Blood where Anna Paquin's trying to, comfort the recently turned vampire Deborah Ann Wool about well, look, like, oh, I can't go and see my family anymore. It's like I lost everything. And it's like, well, I mean, I thought the world ended when I lost my grandma. And it's like, yeah, but grandmas are old. They're supposed, they're gonna die. So it kind of makes you blow off the death of Mrs. Hooper, like. Eh.
I wonder how they explain that getting his son back.
That is well, at least you have George Wendt, who's aware of the demons in the house, to back that up.
Oh no, man! I think they left the both of them up.
What do you mean?
I mean, he got two dudes and a kid that was supposedly dead or presumed dead for.
Well, George Wendt's aware of everything that's going on, but he wasn't in the house when Roger comes out with his kid.
So. Oh no, yeah, but they go to him. And they're like, yeah.
I mean, he's his character witness.
Dude, there's like deals. Like, is there a gas leak in this house? What's going on here? Like, no one's gonna believe him. Like, how does he come back?
Well, I mean, that's how you make sequels, because nobody's going to believe him.
Yeah, but the sequel has nothing to do with the first house, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't.
Urn.
I mean, it's
some kind of urn.
It's called The Second Story, which obviously tells you that it probably isn't a sequel. It's just, I mean, this is a film by New World Pictures, which is pretty much nothing but low budget horror movies. Not ready for New Line, basically. Let's see, I'm thinking New Line Pictures. That was known as the house that Freddy built. But they didn't have, A Nightmare on Elm Street until 1984, a year prior. So
they had a lot of good movies, dude. They had Ninja Turtles, man.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, Suburban Commando.
Oh yeah, let's not forget that Jim.
I want to rewatch that. I know it's tough to find, but I didn't think it was that bad. I think Hogan was perfectly casted, and Christopher Lloyd is great. I mean, you get Undertaker and Paul Roma as your big heavies.
No, I love that movie when I was a kid.
Right. Well, I know I loved it as a kid too, but it's like, I think that, like, when you compare it to Santa Claus with muscles or Mr. Nanny, like, this one actually
was goofy too.
This one looks like it could hold up. So still. And it's interesting though, like thinking about Hulk Hogan movies. There was Assault on Devil's Island back in 1997, which was like the highest rated made for cable movie of all time, probably of all time, because I don't think we really had that many more. Which was basically centered around, like, you watch the movie, you get to see the signing of the contract for Sting versus Hogan at Starrcade. So I think that's why everybody watched it, which is sad because it's like we didn't get enough movies with the guy who played the villain in the movie, the guy who's best known for Kano from the original Mortal Kombat. And there's a movie I love to I always go back to, and if anything, that's when it comes into the concept of made for video action, and called Men of War with Dolph Lundgren, Tiny Lister, BD Wong. I mean, hell of a cast, honestly. Yeah, so the actor I'm talking about is Trevor Goddard. He played Kano in Mortal Kombat. He's the bad guy in Men of War. He gets a brief bit in the movie. I gotta check the runtime on this one. Deep Rising. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It's a movie where there's a cruise ship that all these monsters that are very small on the surface of the ocean invade it because they're not from the surface, they're from the bottom depths of the ocean. Eventually so like kind of big lamprey take over this ship. It's the main actor is Treat Williams. You get the guy who plays the little Weasley guy from The Mummy as his sidekick, Famke Janssen. I mean, a lot of actors. It's directed by the same guy who did The Mummy, actually. Yeah, Kevin J. O'Connor. The subtle villain is, the guy who played Dr. Fredrickson in Silence of the Lamb. Definitely worth a rewatch. Runs a little long for this podcast. But I do have fun with this podcast now, watching movies. Like, does it count for 90 for Chill if the don't have a post-credit scene? Don't have a post-credit scene. Okay, no post-credit scene. All right. Yeah, so movies like Under Siege or The Last Starfighter, they count because the credits take them over the length limits. So, yeah, I'm in the movie now where Roger has gone into the basically it's a Poltergeist ripoff when you really think about it.
Yeah, that was my first thought.
I've never actually seen Poltergeist, but I know that. Well, I've never watched it from beginning to end, I should say. But
that's the classic. I've been thinking about diving into those movies recently.
Well, I mean, I know Poltergeist 1, obviously classic. I think the sequel has its support. The first sequel has some supporters. The third sequel is kind of a cluster muck because I think the little girl died during the filming because of an illness. And I don't even want to think about the remake. Movies I need to watch are the Fright Night movies, actually. So I hear at least you got Fright Night 2, and the first Fright Night remake is good, I've heard. So
I don't mind the remake of Fright Night.
Yeah, no,
it's one of my favorite movies.
So, all right. So, yeah, Roger had just put George went to bed, and now he's about to find the painting that tells everything. That your son's stuck in the medicine cabinet, essentially. I'll give this movie credit. The special effects on our villain are pretty great for the time. I mean, they're a little they're kind of, I guess you'd say, Return of the Living Dead perfected.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never watched. I have another movie I haven't really watched is Return of the Living Dead. I've seen a lot of the zombies though in that.
Yeah, Return's a good one.
Yeah, it's like the mid 80s kind of weird because it's like with Return of the Living Dead, which qualifies for the podcast, so I probably should start throwing that out there. I don't know, Tom Matthews. I did not know. I'm just looking over the cast of that movie. And it's like Tom Matthews from a bunch of Albert Pyun movies is in the top 4 people listed. Oh, but it was written. No, it was directed by Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon's the guy who wrote Aliens, so and wrote one of my favorite movies, which is not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, Life Force, if you're familiar with that one.
I almost watched that movie the other day, actually.
Oh, it's definitely worth a watch. I'm not gonna say it's good, but it's like I mean, it's about space vampires, and one of them is pretty much wandering the entire movie naked.
You had me at space vampires.
Well, and then you got Patrick Stewart's in the movie. It's like there's a scene where he's making out with where he's kind of forced to make out with Steve Railsback. Like it's such a clustermuck. It's kind of something you need to see. And it's only an hour 41. Oh, there's no post-credit sequence. I guess we can do the Life Force podcast at some time. But sheesh. The things you learn on making episodes of 90 for Chill the podcast. And it's directed by Toby Hooper of Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame. So I mean, I love this segment where he's going pretty much into the abyss as he's crawled into the medicine cabinet and rappelling downward.
Strange place to hide a child in the medicine cabinet.
What'd you say?
Strange place to hide a child in the medicine cabinet.
Oh, we keep telling kids not to go in there. We should probably show this movie as a public service announcement. If the pills aren't going to kill you, it's the demons that will.
I mean, it can't hurt.
I mean, that is the problem, I think, with well, it's not a problem. That's the entire paradox of the situation, is that children are pretty fearless right now, and we encourage it. Like me growing up, I had to my parents hardly disciplined me physically, but there's always the threat of it. So, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that kind of fear helps. Again, I work in retail. It's like, I don't know, when I was a child, us 4 kids kind of stayed in line. So
I don't know, man. Some of these people, it seems like they're just asking for it. Like,
oh no!
No. Why are they dragging all the kids? There's a whole family coming out at like 9 o'clock at night.
No, I don't even want to think about your hour situation. Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just kind of like, for me, I don't think we're, at least growing up, again, I think there was just a degree of fear. My mom was kind of short-tempered, so you didn't want to piss her off. And as I say, there was hardly any physicality, but she's going to get intense, and you're going to straighten your ass up. So I don't know. This is going to be the warning on this episode. Yeah, I'm going to question PTSD, degrees of PTSD, and parenting. It's so much easier when we're doing an X-rated movie like Felix the Cat, and it's like, it's an X-rated cartoon movie where no kid under 18 should watch. I'm not going to censor Gregory Carl in this case. Like, as I say, this one I'll probably cut out a bit of all that opening conversation about a lot of the wrestling, just because we're talking wrestling. Like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when Speaking Out happened, and yeah, I'm a supporter of Marty Scurll because his friends didn't really turn on him, I guess is what I'm saying. It's like David Starr, everybody went persona non grata with that guy, and I didn't, and I thought, yeah, he could just be an asshole who's learning. So yeah, but the crap I heard in the wrestling business, that's like, gosh, there's far too many victims. For people who aren't wise enough to be victims. Heck, I have my Speaking Out stories. I'm just not going to I don't think they're worth ruining anybody's life about. So I mean, your age getting into the
who hurt you, Russ?
Well, I'm just saying, be grateful that you never wanted to take a bump, and getting in the wrestling business at your age is not going to be too problematic.
Oh no, I think I could still go. I can probably go just as good, if not better than some of the guys I saw.
There's a good chance. Again, I know indie wrestling, but it's like when I was 35 and tried to start making a comeback 4 years removed from my last bump. No, my gas tank wasn't there. So I don't know. How old are you? 30?
37?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't see unless you're living that DDPY lifestyle right now. I don't think you got it, man. Now, if you start doing DDPY, maybe.
So there's a chance.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah.
No, I got no desire, nor do I have the time.
Yeah. You see, I don't know. My life, I grew up watching wrestling, and then, I had a bully in preschool, which, I don't know. I didn't really realize that this kid was pretty much getting out his anger, like, oh, getting thrown around. And I guess, oh, I got thrown around and I'm getting back up. What's the big deal? So getting into, so I was studying karate at 6, taekwondo at 7 through 12, and wrestling from 12 to 19. And it's like, no, I love getting my ass kicked. Just like, I kind of, my in hindsight, it's kind of like, oh, and actually now I'm watching the movie, and it's kind of like, we talk about a lot of movies, you and I, about people being stuck on roofs.
Do we? I never noticed.
Well, I mean, I say that, and this is only like the second movie with a roof scene, but as he's crawling around the house getting away from Richard Mole, the remains of Richard Mole. He ends up out on the roof, just like in Deadly Games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think their lesson is don't wear fatigues.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah. Be it kid with a sweet mullet or former Vietnam veteran. Like, I mean, it's like me going to a hockey game. I might wear the sweater, but I'm definitely not going to wear the helmet. Or at baseball games, like Cubs games, I don't wear. Well, my story about not wearing a regular Cubs hat is because of Steve Bartman and the similarities in our looks. That happened at a fight night after the 2003 playoffs, where Steve Bartman dropped the ball, and like, I'm just wearing my glasses, going to the bar to maybe fight, and I'm wearing a Cubs hat, and it's like the owner of the bar gets on the microphone, dude, Russ, you look like the guy who dropped the frickin' ball. So, all right, I'm never gonna wear a regular Cubs hat again in my life, and I have not since. Well, I can't say that because I did do it for cheap heat wrestling wise. Like I'd come to the ring like with a Cubs hat and a green sweatshirt. Just a, oh yeah, I know what I look like. And with this finale, like the one thing that really throws me off is when like, oh, and now the house is on a cliff. It kind of brings me back, and I've only really seen one Amityville movie, and it was during a Riff Tracks presentation of the Amityville movie. Amityville 4 The Evil Returns, which is PG, could have been made for TV.
But I've only ever seen the very first one way back.
Yep, and that's the only one you should see. But I say that, and it's like, no, the one I saw with the possessed lamp was really, I mean, should never have been made, but it's not that bad. Or maybe it's growing up in the 80s watching Nick at Night and like, oh, Patty Duke reruns.
I mean, it can't be any worse than Velocipaster.
Oh, I love Velocipaster.
What was that? What was that UFO movie I recommended to you? What was that? McAllister or whatever.
Oh, you brought that up. Yeah, I got the note. McPherson. Yeah. Well, I mean,
but I know you said it was too short, but if you actually watch it, you will realize that it might actually be a little bit too long.
Well, I'm saying from the time length, yeah, the McPherson tape. Now my older
that are hilarious though.
My older sister would say, "Well, you got to remember, Russ, in the 30s, movies didn't have to be longer than an hour." And it's like, yeah, but I think like the oldest movie I watched recently would be it was on Tubi, the Dark Old House with Bela Lugosi. Not Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff. It's an English film. It's actually pretty good, but I think it was only 71 minutes, like Velocipaster, which
a lot of those movies were super short.
Yeah. Well, and you got to keep in mind back in the 30s, like when you go to the movie theater, you're going for an entire event, an entire evening. So you're expecting like 3 to 4 hours of entertainment. So short movies are not a bad thing. So, yep, now the grenade has gone off and the ex-wife has arrived. I don't know, since you took the time to blow up your house and you come out with a kid, I don't think anybody's really going to ask too many questions. Like,
the house did take him. The house really did take him.
Yeah.
You didn't have him just in your basement, sir?
Yeah, well, who was taking care of the kid in the basement because he wasn't living there? Yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy, but like, how do you answer these questions? Like, and it's kind of weird because there's also an eclectic soundtrack to this movie as well, which I was kind of surprised the movie this cheap that they actually went and paid for those songs. So I mean, this movie is like it doesn't. The important thing about House is it doesn't do anything wrong, I guess. Like, a lot of things could have been done better. But
I mean, it's a weird, fun flick, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's and this is what a solid B is, I don't want to say it's average because no, it's not average. It's just yeah, I mean, it just,
you're kind of into this kind of thing or you're not.
Right. No, you're right about that. I can see what I think IMDb puts it maybe at a 5.6 or so, and that's wrong. I mean, Life Force is a 6.1, and this is better than Life Force, quality wise, entertainment wise. Life Force, and now it's just realized, oh yeah, Russ, you own the director's cut. That's why Life Force is so bloody long. It's too long for the show. Come on, enter mouse. No, it's a 6.1, so I guess that's fair. Metascore 44, but yeah, who really gives a crap about? I don't know. Metascore never impresses me. I mean, I do stand by the tomato meter, but I guess with the tomato meter though, you still have people who are like, oh, the audience score, and it's like, as L7 wrote, the masses are asses. So
yeah, that's not entirely false.
yeah.
What kind of person's gonna take the time to actually do that?
Yeah, it's one of those, like, as you said, the box art is great, and then it's like, then I'm looking on Shudder and seeing the still behind the text, and it's like, I don't know, that promises something a little more intense. But and just reading the description though, it's like, okay, Roger's gonna make peace with his past. Steve Miner, director, I think, of Friday the 13th 2 and 3, mixes Looney Tunes aesthetics and gross out gore. I don't think there was gross out gore in this movie.
No, there's almost no gore.
Yeah, I mean, all you got's the burying the dead body.
Yeah, you got one, but there's no like blood though.
Yeah, no. Like, I could see comparing it to, it's saying fans of broad 80s horror comedies like Evil Dead, Return of the Living Dead, and Killer Clowns. Well, I definitely see Killer Clowns. And I can see Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, not the original Evil Dead, as I say. I think it wasn't until the sequel that we really got the comedy perfected. But, and I shouldn't say sequel. Evil Dead 2 is a remake. Let's be upfront.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space made like an imprint on me, man.
I did not see Killer Clowns until my early 20s, and that was at a bar one night. I mean, I was aware of it. Those like, how do you make clowns even scarier than they are? Well, damn.
Dude, I saw that movie entirely too young.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, even when it came out when I think I was 6, 8 at the oldest, and it's like, I'm glad I didn't see it when I was that age. Yeah, so no, all I can say is, like, I gotta, when it comes to parenting and showing kids stuff, it gets weird. Like, my first Christmas gift for my nephew was a Blu-ray copy of Flash Gordon. And then my little sister remembers, like, it's PG, Ryan, it's fine. Oh yeah, all the sex jokes and everything. And then I can't let their and they won't let him watch wrestling. He's 9 years old now. Come on, going on 10. It's like,
oh yeah, especially nowadays, dude. Yeah.
Well, the first time I was able to really let him watch wrestling was, like, I was at my parents' house, and it was the Darby Allin versus Ethan Page coffin match. That may have been a little too intense for a kid. I think you got Darby bleeding. I know there were thumbtacks, and then you have Darby doing the coffin drop through the coffin, like, which is one of those stunts that it's like a little, if he misjudged that at all, he was going to impale himself. Sheesh. And that's a kids don't try that at home moment. Like,
no shit. Speaking of kids, I think the baby woke up.
Okay, well, the movie has concluded, so let's get to the wrapping up. And sheesh, sorry to keep you up so late again, but thanks for saving the day, making spooky month work for 90for Chill, the podcast. So, Gregory, have you gotten many more episodes of the Mud Show out since last time I checked?
No, I had to make peace with the fact that I do not have time to keep up with everything and do it.
Yeah, no, I fully acknowledge that. You need to take like, it's not like wrestling might be great all over, but I just don't have the time. Like, I got an NJPW World subscription. I got AEW to watch. I can't promise anything more. So yeah, but hey, it's a worthwhile endeavor when it happened. So yeah, but otherwise you can be found on Facebook. He is available for ring crew work, as we've established.
Oh yeah, I'm a great grunt.
Right.
business. Best grunt in the business.
I don't know. Once you have to deal with John Calvin or Ian, then that's when you get judged. Thanks for coming on the show again. Thanks for, again, as I say, you're saving spooky month to start, and hopefully I'll get everybody lined up correctly. You can follow me on Twitter at CatBusRuss. If you want to bitch about the show, that's where I prefer it. Otherwise, rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. We're about everywhere. 5 stars preferably. I will reciprocate. I will be honest, but you will get 5 stars. It's, as always, we drop every Tuesday. The website is NinetyForChill.com. If you want to read all my writings, that's maineventofthedead.com. If you have suggestions on how to make maineventofthedead.com, Main Event of the Dead, the screenplay, a reality, let me know. The email address is russthebus07@gmail.com. That's RUSSTHEBUS07@gmail.com. But that project's been wallowing in development hell for 12 years now. So more importantly, if you want to be on the show, offer me a movie, a theme, a director, an actor, focus on sub 100-minute material, but I can make any movie work. Just send an email again to russthebus07@gmail.com, and let's make some fried podcast gold. Otherwise, thanks, Stacia Harden, for keeping me motivated and trying to pay honor to your memory. And thanks for touching all the lives you touched when you were around. And Gregory, you got anything else to say? Any projects you're working on?
Just getting this baby.
Well, I mean, I envy people with those kind of priorities, man. Oh yes, I'm clinically depressed. Okay. Well, you take care of the kid, and thanks again for all your help.
Can I hear a wahoo?
So we dipped our toes in the wrestling business.
Yeah, I volunteered to help out with a show in Springfield.
Oh, okay.
Like 7 hours of my life I'm never going to get back again.
Oh, I'm curious. Who is the guy running the show?
It was for Pinfall in Springfield.
Okay.
It was, even something.
Yeah, see,
name.
I worked down in Springfield. I mean, gosh, now it's going to be, last time I worked there was 2007. So yeah, 15 years ago, for Justin McIntyre, aka Justin Clark, New Midwest Pro Wrestling. Yeah. So I knew a few of the guys. I imagine a few of the guys are still doing it. But yeah, that was a interesting story about that promotion. So my traveling buddy and I, and this is 2004, Raul, or I guess the full title of him would be Sinister with 2 N's, Raul Montenegro, is at least what his ring name was. He has a tattoo that has his last name on it. So it's like, he also has hawk and animal tattoos. So, I mean, he's not, you can't really pick on him too much. You can't, I can, but that's just because of our history.
I don't know. I'm not gonna fuck with a hawk and animal. At least he has got good taste.
Yeah, I'll give him that. So it's so he was trying to get into Springfield. This is right when I was 2004. So right after my broken wrist, my comeback, headlining our biggest card and jobbing out in a gauntlet match for the title. That's Next Generation Wrestling. So Raul was like, basically, this is how I stayed in Peoria for an extra year and a half, I suppose. So I went and like, oh no, man, I'm going to get down in Springfield, man. So we started training with those guys. You don't need to go to Ring of Honor and train under Punk. And like, oh, well, maybe. I mean, we are doing some traveling, so maybe we are real professionals. So, so we went down there, and he was really trying to get his other friend who had a lot of potential. Chris Hazard was his ring name. There, but had a DUI, so I was his driver for the most part. Not Hazard, Raul. So we get down there, work a few shows, but in the meantime, like, we bring in a guy who got himself exiled from the Peoria scene. Justin Clark wrestles under Justin McIntyre, and so he goes and so he travels with us, him and his baby mama, I should say. I don't know what their status ended up being, and yeah, so
she was just there, like she didn't have a job. Like, what was her job?
She was a valet. She was a valet. Didn't take too many bumps. But so what happened was, so the story of that goes down to, so we were on 3 shows, and I guess we got canned for like talking crap about the promotion. I don't know. That was a weird one. And then but oh no, Justin and oh shit, I can't even remember her name now. So but they were cool. So a year later, the promotion goes up on the market, and she had a death in her family and inherited some money, so they bought the promotion and moved down to Springfield. So I worked maybe 3 shows for them after I got trained by Danny Daniels, and yeah, then I kind of just flaked out in general. But yeah, I got quite the history of Justin McIntyre. Not bad necessarily, but first guy basically who tried to threaten me, like, and then like, oh yeah, no, I'm the guy who fought the UFC fighter in the tough man contest, you know. Yeah, I didn't last long in that fight, but the fact of the matter is I was there and did that. So it's always nice when reality gets to come in, and I can, like, I've had people like threaten to call the cops on me, promoters in Peoria, like, oh, so this is personal between you and me, let's take care of it. Yeah, you said you had an entire locker room behind you. So yeah,
I set up chairs and took out trash.
Well, I mean, that's a better story than when I accidentally worked for Rock and Roll Buck Zumwalt in Bloomington. If you know who Rock and Roll Buck Zumwalt ended up being. And I knew a guy in Peoria who like really became friends with Buck. So, and he always gave me crap, like, yeah, look who you're with. Buck Zumwalt.
It was cool, man. I heard some stories and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I
was told to show up at 2, and like everything was done. I'm like, oh, sorry, I don't really have anything for you to do. Like, well, fuck, man, what am I gonna do now?
Well, did they make you buy?
Like a weirdo.
Did they make you buy a ticket?
No.
Okay, then you won, man. I
got to see Matt Cardona and Spencer Powers fight over who had the best toy collection.
Okay, I do know Spencer Powers. Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool guy. Probably the best guy in Springfield, at least again.
Yeah, he was pretty decent, man. It was
15 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, he had like I don't know. I met him when he was doing a mask gimmick, and the entire point was he was breaking out of the mask. And then, of course, they have a ladder match, like maybe a year and a half later, and he turns on his tag team ladder match. He turns on his partner. Like, that's just something that doesn't work for me. Why are you going to get the crap kicked out of you for 15 minutes, and then you're going to turn on the guy?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, like I said, it was a good match. It's just the whole like toy collector thing.
Yeah.
Side of it just bothered me. But that aside, like I bet that suplex onto all those fucking wrestling action figures.
Oh, yeah, no. It's like we had that argument back when I was working at Marine Bank. Like trying to tell the girls, no, you want to go into thumbtacks before you go into Legos. Thumbtacks stick, and they're done. Legos
That is a good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So, which leads me to another story. Like, somebody put on Twitter, "Who's the greatest Chuck ever?" And I said, sexy Chuck E.T., Chuck Taylor. Like, have I seen Norris go and deal with Legos? So, all right. Well,
they did offer me a position though, but I think it was abruptly taken away when they saw the jokes I was posting to the.
Oh, I don't know. Promoters are sensitive assholes. That's all I can say. And granted, I have aspirations of doing promoting, always like, yeah, maybe I can do a promoter, but
look, man, it's just that I have eyes in my head, and that match looked like a fucking male gigolo playing grab ass with a fucking meth addict.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of that. And the thing is though, I don't know. It's kind of like Danny Daniels was great for Seth Rollins and Merrick Brave, got them their looks. I even say the same for Shane Hollister, my friend Crotch. These are all guys that trained up with in Davenport and Chicago. And then I go to an Iron Spirit Pro show in Champaign, and these guys are good. I've heard of this guy, and they could work on their looks. And then there's a guy who's really hot right now. I think he's wrestled for GCW, Dante Leone. And dude, no. I mean, we're beyond the Hardy Boys gimmick. I mean, that's just so.
I don't mean to sound like I would just trash them. Like, there was some cool stuff there too.
Oh yeah, no, there always is, but I mean, I
don't want to make it seem like the whole thing was negative. You know what I mean?
Oh no. There's always some great talent. There's always some great talent. I've I tried getting involved with UWC when they were at the Homer Opera House in Homer, Illinois. But promoters, again, sensitive types. You just can't go and tell them okay, and here's what I would do. No, that's just the problem. It's money marks for the most part. They're not looking for art. I mean, I could at least talk to Danny Daniels and what do you think of the show? And it's like, all right, well, you asked me, so.
I got to hear about how Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner are assholes, and
you see, and I've had a good experience with Scott Steiner. So, I mean, 12 years may have changed things, and heck, Scott Steiner's in the Hall of Fame after calling Stephanie McMahon a C-word. So,
yeah, he said Tracy Smothers called him a certain word, and I was just like, how, you booked him. How do you know, he's probably going to do that? This is Tracy Smothers, Wild-Eyed Southern Boy, dude.
Yeah, Tracy was a good guy. Not essentially a aware man. I'll say that much about him, but
yeah, for sure, dude. Tracy Smothers is cool, man.
Yeah, I did not appreciate him opening up his wrestling school in Lincoln, Illinois, though, and still having the Confederate flag in his logo. So, as they say,
yeah, he waves the shit out of that, don't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Tracy's gone. If you didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I knew that.
All right, so
long live Flash! You've saved your Earth. Have a nice day.